I got handcuffed on the front porch of the house where I took my first steps. 2 officers put me in cuffs while my sister Ruby stood on the lawn fake crying for the neighbors, and my parents watched from the doorway like I was some stranger who had broken in to rob them. That was 2 years ago this past October. I was 22, working early shifts at a distribution warehouse about 40 minutes from the house, saving money by living at home while I figured out my next move. Normal arrangement that millions of people in their 20s have with their parents. I paid $400 a month toward utilities, bought my own groceries, kept to myself in the basement, and stayed out of everyone's way. I genuinely thought we were good. What I did not know was that my sister Ruby had gotten engaged to her boyfriend Julian 3 months earlier. And my parents had already promised them they could move into the house after the wedding, not just visit on weekends. Move in permanently. The plan was for Ruby and Julian to take over the entire basement level, which they were going to renovate into a separate apartment for the newlyweds to start their life together. The problem with this generous gift was that I was already living in the basement. Had been since I was 16 when my parents converted it into a bedroom for me, so Ruby could have the larger room upstairs for her senior year of high school. 6 years I lived down there. Nobody told me any of this. Not one conversation about the engagement gift or the basement renovation plans. Not a single hint that I needed to start looking for my own place or that my living situation had an expiration date. Instead, what happened was this. I came home from work on a Thursday afternoon in late October, pulled my 2019 Mazda into the driveway like I had done 1,000 times before, walked up to the front door, and found that my key did not work. They had changed the locks while I was at work. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes trying to figure out what was going on, then walked around to the side gate to go through the backyard and used the basement entrance that opened to the patio. That door was also locked from the inside, which it never was. I started knocking, then I started banging harder. I could see movement through the basement windows, shadows of people walking around in what was supposed to be my space with my stuff. I yelled that it was me, that I lived there, that someone needed to let me in because everything I owned was inside. My wallet was in there, my clothes for the week, my laptop with all my college assignments, everything. After about 20 minutes of this, the police cruiser pulled up to the curb in front of the house. The officers got out and approached me, and I immediately started explaining that I lived there, that someone had locked me out, that this was clearly some kind of misunderstanding that we could sort out in 5 minutes. One of them asked me to step away from the house and show some ID. I told him my ID was inside because I had left my wallet that morning like I always did for early shifts. I only had my work badge and car keys on me. He asked if I could prove I lived there. I said, yes, absolutely. All my mail comes here. My name is on documents inside. Let me just show you and we can clear this up. That was when my mom came out the front door. She walked straight up to the officers and told them I did not live there anymore, that I had moved out 2 weeks ago and that I had shown up threatening violence against the family. She said I told her I was going to kill them. Actually said those words to the police while I stood right there. Said I had been erratic and unstable for months and they were genuinely afraid of me and could they please check my room because she believed I might have weapons hidden somewhere. I just stood there trying to process what I was hearing come out of my own mother's mouth. I kept saying, Mom, what are you doing? Mom, why are you saying this? Stop. She would not look at me. Kept her eyes on the officers the entire time, doing this performance like she was genuinely terrified of her own son, who she had raised for 22 years. My dad came out next and backed up everything she said, word for word. Claimed that they had asked me to leave weeks ago, and I had refused to go. Said I had become aggressive and unpredictable. Said they feared for their safety in their own home. Ruby came out last. She walked onto the front lawn where the neighbors could see from their windows. Looked directly at me and started crying. Not real crying, performing, telling the officers through her fake sobs that I had been acting crazy for months, that she did not feel safe in the house with me there, that she was scared. The whole time she was watching me from the corner of her eye to see my reaction to her show. My own sister was actually enjoying watching me get accused of things I never did and would never do. The officers went inside to do a welfare check and search my room for the supposed weapons. Found a hunting knife under my mattress. My dad's hunting knife that I had seen in his closet my entire life. He planted it there that morning after I left for my shift, knowing exactly what was going to happen when I came home and found the locks changed. They put me in handcuffs on that porch. I found out at the station that my parents had filed for an emergency protective order against me the day before. They went to a judge, claimed I was dangerous, got a temporary restraining order, then orchestrated everything knowing I would violate it without ever being notified it existed. I spent 8 hours in holding. No charges because pay stubs proved residency and the order was never served. But I had nowhere to go. Slept in my car until my coworker Ricky took me in. Ruby's wedding was June. Julian had loans. Ruby worked part-time. They needed the basement, so I had to be erased completely. My mom told her sister Lydia I threatened them with a knife. Lydia told Grandma Mary. The whole family believed I was dangerous. Nobody asked my side. Golden child, Ruby versus the difficult son who questioned things. Easy choice for them. I did not cry. I got angry and stayed angry for 2 years. Better jobs, my own place, college, everything documented. Lawyer consulted. Ready for when they would need me. 2 weeks ago, 17 missed calls. By Wednesday, 89. Mom screaming in voicemails. Ruby sending Instagram DMs. Something happened and now they need me. I have not responded to one message. When I do, it will be on my terms. Update coming when I find out what broke. Update 1. So, I found out why they have been calling. Thank you to everyone who commented. Some suggested I keep ignoring them forever. Others said I should find out what they want for information purposes. That second group was right. Information is power. I did not call them back directly. I texted my Aunt Lydia from a prepaid phone I got 6 months after everything happened. Kept it simple. Said it was Connor. Asked what was going on. She responded in 4 minutes. 4 minutes after 2 years of treating me like I was dead. Grandma Mary had a stroke 3 weeks ago. She was in a rehabilitation facility. Recovery uncertain. She was 78 and this was her second stroke. The family had been gathering, making arrangements, and Grandma had been asking for me. Not occasionally, constantly every day asking where Connor was, why I had not visited, what happened to her grandson. Here is where it gets interesting. Lydia said my mom had been telling Grandma I was traveling for work and could not get away, that I was in contact but very busy. My mom had been lying to a dying woman for 3 weeks to cover up what she did 2 years ago. But Grandma was not buying it. She got more agitated, demanding to see me in person, refusing the excuses. Then she said something that made my parents panic. She wanted to talk to her lawyer about her will, wanted to make changes, and she wanted me there when she did it. Context about Grandma Mary. She and my grandfather bought their house in 1971, paid it off by 1989. Grandfather passed in 2016, left everything to her. That house is worth around $400,000 now. She also has savings and retirement accounts from 2 people who worked middle-class jobs for 40 years. My parents have been counting on that inheritance forever. Not obviously greedy, but in that quiet assumption way. Mentioning how nice it would be to pay off their mortgage. How Grandma's house would be perfect for Ruby someday. They mentally spent that money already. Their house still has 15 years on the mortgage after refinancing twice. They are not struggling but not comfortable either. Grandma's inheritance was their light at the end of the tunnel. And now Grandma wanted her lawyer with me present while potentially dying. And my parents could not produce me. My first reaction when Lydia told me this, I laughed internally because this was exactly what I had been waiting for. Something to give me leverage, something that would make them need me more than I needed them. I asked Lydia for the facility name and address. She gave it immediately, probably assuming I would rush over like a good grandson. I was going to see Grandma, but not for the reasons Lydia thought. I went the next evening after classes, drove an hour, did not tell anyone, signed in at the front desk, asked for Mary's room. The woman asked if I was family. Said yes. Her grandson Connor. She pointed me down the hall. Grandma was awake. She looked smaller, thinner, older in that way people get when their bodies fail. But her eyes were sharp. She recognized me and said my name and started crying. Real crying, not like Ruby's performance. She grabbed my hand and would not let go. Kept saying she knew something was wrong. She knew they were lying. She knew I would not abandon her. Then she asked point blank what happened. Why did I disappear? Why did I never call? So I told her everything. The changed locks, the planted knife, the restraining order filed without my knowledge, the handcuffs, Ruby's lawn performance, sleeping in my car, how I found out through Ricky's girlfriend who worked at the salon with Ruby that it was planned weeks in advance. Grandma did not interrupt, just listened with an expression, like confirmation, like she suspected something was wrong and now had proof. When I finished, she asked if I had evidence. Said yes. Screenshots of the police report from a public records request. Paperwork showing the restraining order was filed the day before lockout. Text messages where my mom acted normal right up until that day. Everything organized on my phone. She asked to see it. Took 20 minutes to go through. She nodded occasionally. When done, she said she wanted me to come back the following week. There were things she needed to handle first, but she wanted me there when she talked to her lawyer. She specifically said, "Do not tell your parents you came tonight." I agreed. Not about to argue with a 78-year-old stroke survivor who might be the only family member who cared about truth. What I did not expect was 3 days later at work. My phone blew up. Lydia directly Ricky texting asking if I was okay because some woman called the warehouse looking for me. Instagram DM from Ruby saying we need to talk now. Grandma had called my mother that morning. I do not know what was said, but based on aftermath, it was not pleasant. Mom called Dad at work. He left early. They went to the facility and Grandma refused to let them in her room. Told staff she did not want to see them. They sat in the waiting area 2 hours before leaving. Now my parents knew I visited, knew Grandma heard my side, knew she was making moves with her lawyer, and they were losing their minds trying to reach me. I have not responded. Ruby's messages range from, "How could you do this to Grandma?" to, "You are tearing this family apart we can fix this if you just talk." Mom left a voicemail crying about how I manipulated a sick woman with lies. Dad sent a text trying to sound reasonable, saying there are 2 sides and we should sit down as a family. 2 sides after what they did. I'm going back next week. Grandma has a lawyer meeting Thursday and wants me there. My parents do not know yet. I am not doing this for inheritance. I could not care less about money. What I care about is watching them realize their plan to erase me is about to blow up. They thought they could throw me away with 0 consequences. They were wrong. More updates coming. Update 2. Thursday came. I took the afternoon off work and drove to the rehabilitation facility for Grandma's meeting with her lawyer. I got there 30 minutes early because I wanted time to sit with her before everything started. She looked better than my first visit. More color in her face. She was sitting up in bed eating pudding when I walked in and she actually smiled. We talked for a bit about nothing important. She asked about my job, my apartment, whether I was eating enough grandma stuff. It felt normal for about 15 minutes, and I will admit that was strange after 2 years of having no family contact at all. Then she got serious. She told me she had been thinking a lot since my visit, about what my parents did, about how Ruby was involved, about how the whole family just accepted their version without question. She said she felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner, for not reaching out to me herself when I supposedly just vanished. She had trusted her daughter to tell her the truth, and her daughter had lied to her face for 2 years. The lawyer arrived at 2. Older guy, maybe mid-60s, had been handling Grandma's affairs since my grandfather passed. He sat up at the small table in her room with a laptop and some folders. Grandma introduced me and he shook my hand and said he had heard a lot about me recently. I am not going to go into every detail of the legal stuff because honestly, some of it went over my head. But the basics were this. Grandma's original will split everything evenly between my mom and my uncle who lives out of state. Her house, her accounts, everything 50-50, standard setup. What Grandma wanted to do now was change it. She wanted to remove my mother entirely and leave her portion to me instead. The lawyer walked her through what that meant, the process, the timeline. He asked multiple times if she was sure, if she understood this was a significant decision, if she had considered the family implications. She said yes every time. She said her daughter had shown her true character and she was not going to reward that. We were maybe 40 minutes into the meeting when there was a knock on the door. I knew before it even opened. My mom walked in first with my dad right behind her. They must have found out about the appointment somehow. Maybe called the facility pretending to check on Grandma's schedule. Maybe Lydia let it slip. I do not know. My mom saw me sitting there and her face went through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds. Then she looked at the lawyer and the papers on the table and I watched her put it together. She started talking immediately, not yelling, but that intense controlled voice people use when they're trying not to explode, saying, "Mom, what is going on here? What is he doing here? We need to talk about this privately." Grandma told her to sit down and be quiet. I had never heard her use that tone with my mother before. My mom actually listened. She and my dad took the 2 chairs by the window while the lawyer gathered his papers and said he would give the family some privacy and they could continue this another time. After he left, my mom started in on Grandma, going on about how I had manipulated her, how I was taking advantage of a sick woman, how everything I told her was twisted and one-sided. She kept saying, "Mom, you do not know the whole story. You were not there. Connor has always had problems and we were trying to protect ourselves." I let her talk, did not interrupt once. Just sat there watching her spin her version of events while Grandma listened with that same expression she had when I showed her my evidence. When my mom finally ran out of steam, Grandma asked her one question. She asked if they really filed a restraining order the day before they changed the locks. My mom hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Then she tried to explain it, saying that they were scared, saying they did not know what I might do, saying it was for everyone's safety. Grandma asked another question. She asked if my dad really planted his hunting knife under my mattress. My dad jumped in this time saying that was ridiculous, saying I probably put it there myself and was just blaming them. But Grandma kept looking at my mom and my mom would not make eye contact. That was when Grandma said something I will remember forever. She said she raised my mother to be better than this. That she did not know what happened to make her daughter capable of doing something so cruel to her own child. But whatever the reason, she was not going to pretend it did not happen. My mom started crying. Real tears this time, not performance tears. Saying she was sorry, saying they just wanted Ruby to have a good start with Julian. Saying they never meant for it to go this far. Saying they thought I would be fine on my own and they could reconcile later once things settled down. 2 years of silence and now she wanted to reconcile. My dad tried a different approach. He stood up and walked toward me saying we could work this out man-to-man, saying families have disagreements but we needed to move past this. He actually extended his hand like he wanted to shake on it like a handshake would erase getting arrested on my own porch. I told him no. I told both of them that I did not come here for reconciliation. I came because Grandma asked me to and because she deserved to know the truth about what her daughter did. I told them they had 2 years to reach out and apologize and explain. And they chose to let the whole family think I was dangerous instead. That was their choice. Now they got to live with the consequences. My mom turned to Grandma and started begging, saying, "Please do not do this." Saying she would make it right with me, saying the family needed to stay together. Grandma told her the decision was already made. The lawyer would be back next week to finalize everything. My dad's face changed. Then he stopped trying to be reasonable and told Grandma she was making a huge mistake, that I was manipulating her emotions while she was sick, that this would tear the family apart permanently. Grandma told him to leave. When he did not move, she pressed the call button for the nurse. They left. My mom crying. My dad red-faced and silent. I stayed with Grandma for another hour. She held my hand and told me she was proud of me for building a life after what they did. She said she wished she had known sooner. She said she hoped I would visit her more often now, regardless of what happened with the rest of the family. I told her I would and I meant it. But here is the thing I did not expect. When I got back to my apartment that night, Ruby was sitting on the steps outside my building. I have no idea how she found my address. She stood up when she saw me and said we needed to talk. Just her and me, no parents. I should have walked past her and gone inside, but I did not because I wanted to hear what she had to say for herself. I wanted her to try to justify what she did on that lawn 2 years ago. Part 4 coming. This conversation did not go how either of us expected. Final update. Ruby was waiting outside my apartment building. I asked how she found my address. She said Lydia got it from the rehabilitation facility sign-in sheet and passed it along. Of course she did. Privacy means nothing in this family. I could have gone inside and ignored her. Probably should have, but I had waited 2 years to hear Ruby try to explain herself without our parents there to script her responses. So, I told her she had 10 minutes. We stood in the parking lot because I was not letting her into my home. She started by saying she never wanted things to go this far, that the original plan was just to get me to move out so she and Julian could have the basement, that Mom and Dad handled the details, and she did not know about the restraining order or the planted knife until after it happened. I asked her about the lawn, about the fake crying, about telling the police she was scared of me when she knew it was all a setup. She tried to justify it. Said Mom told her what to say. Said she was under pressure. Said she figured I would just find another place to stay and everyone would move on and eventually it would blow over. She actually used those words, blow over. Like getting handcuffed and spending 8 hours in holding was something that would just blow over. Asked her why. Not why the plan happened, but why she went along with it. Why she did not say something to me beforehand, why she did not refuse to participate, why she chose a basement apartment over her own brother. That was when she finally said something honest. She told me she had always resented me, that growing up she felt like she had to be perfect, because I was the difficult one, the one who argued and pushed back and made things harder for everyone. She said, Mom and Dad spent so much energy dealing with me that she learned to just be easy, be agreeable, be the golden child because that was the only way to get attention. And when they offered her the basement and said I needed to go, she saw it as finally getting something for herself. Finally being chosen first. So there it was. 24 years of sibling resentment packed into one terrible decision. She resented me for being difficult, so she helped destroy my life to get a free apartment. I told her that was the most pathetic thing I had ever heard. That she threw away her brother for a basement renovation and a head start on married life with Julian. That she watched me get arrested and did nothing. That she let the whole family believe I was violent for 2 years while she posted holiday photos and played happy family. She started crying, saying she was sorry, saying she knew it was wrong, saying she had been too ashamed to reach out, asking if there was any way we could move past this, if I could ever forgive her, if we could try to be siblings again. I said no, not maybe, not we will see, just no. I told her forgiveness requires accountability and 2 years of silence was not accountability. I told her she only showed up now because Grandma was changing her will and the family was panicking about money. I told her she was not sorry for what she did. She was sorry there were finally consequences. She got angry then said I was being cruel. Said Grandma was sick and I was using her to punish everyone. Said I was tearing the family apart for revenge. I told her no. They tore the family apart when they decided I was disposable. I was just making sure they could not pretend it never happened. Ruby left after that. Did not say goodbye. Just walked to her car and drove away. That was the last time I saw her in person. The lawyer meeting happened the following week. Grandma signed the new will. Her portion of the estate, including half the value of her house and half her accounts, will now go to me when she passes. My mom gets nothing. My uncle gets his original half unchanged since he had nothing to do with any of this. But here is the part that really matters. Grandma also decided to tell the rest of the family the truth. She called Lydia and my uncle and several cousins over the following days. Told them exactly what my parents did. The locks, the knife, the restraining order, the lies she was told for 2 years. Some of them believed her. Some of them probably still have doubts. But the narrative my parents carefully built about me being dangerous and unstable is now cracked wide open. My mom tried to do damage control. She called relatives and gave her version, saying Grandma was confused from the stroke, saying I had manipulated a sick woman, saying this was all a misunderstanding. But Grandma's mind is sharp. Everyone who visits her can see that. And people started asking questions my mom could not answer without admitting what she did. The best part is what happened with the house. My parents' house, the one they kicked me out of to give Ruby the basement. Julian apparently did not love the idea of living with his in-laws after all this drama started. He and Ruby moved out 2 months ago into a rental apartment on the other side of town. So my parents did all of this, destroyed their relationship with their son, And Ruby did not even stay in the basement. They have an empty basement renovation they cannot afford to finish and a mortgage they were counting on inheritance money to pay off. Money that is now coming to me instead. I visited Grandma last weekend. She is doing better. Talking about maybe going home with a part-time caregiver instead of staying in the facility long-term. She asked if I had heard from my parents recently. I said no. She said that was probably for the best. I do not know if I will ever speak to my parents or Ruby again. Maybe someday there will be some kind of minimal contact for practical reasons, but I am not seeking it and I am not hoping for it. They made their choice 2 years ago when they decided removing me from the family was easier than having an honest conversation. Someone in the comments on my first post said, "Living well is the best revenge." I disagree. Living well is just living. Revenge is making sure the people who hurt you understand exactly what they lost and can never pretend otherwise. Grandma knows the truth. The extended family knows something is very wrong with my parents' story. Ruby lost her brother and her free apartment. My parents lost their inheritance, their reputation, and any chance of a relationship with me and me. I have my own place, my own life, a grandmother who actually cares about me. And the satisfaction of knowing that when they needed me, when they were desperate and calling 89 times begging for just one response, I made them wait just like they made me wait on that porch while they called the cops on their own son. That is where I am leaving this. Thanks for reading. Thanks for the support. Thanks for letting me get all of this out. Some stories do not have happy endings, but some stories have endings where the right people finally face consequences. This was one of them.